Trevor Philips today thought he had a bit of a zinger with the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, but it backfired. Phillips tried to claim that the £22 billion black hole left by the last Conservative government didn't really matter in comparison to the government's own spending, but very quickly tried to backtrack, saying that he didn't really say that, even though 30 seconds before he had. It does matter, clearly, because $22 billion would go a long way in helping public services. Problem, I think, is that they've really gone after the wrong demographic at the wrong time. And I've said it before, I don't think people that can afford the winter payments should be able to receive it. But on the flip side of that, they need to make sure that the people that are just above the threshold are not going to find themselves struggling to heat their homes. This, I think, probably could have been done something in the budget of next year, and that would give people more of a chance to get used to not receiving it, rather than at a time when the temperature is dropping and the fuel bills are set to rise. One of the commentators after the interview made a very valid point that they're not explaining this well enough, and it can leave themselves wide open to attack. So I'll pop that at the end of the clip.
Let me tell you that whether it's pensioners or anyone else in our country, they won't forgive us if we duck the difficult decisions now and end up leaving the country with a bigger bill, a bigger price of failure in the future. That was the Conservative way. That's not the approach we're going to take.
Well, you raised two questions there, which I'd like to talk a bit more about, the pensioners and also the black hole. As you know in this programme, we're never far from a chart. You've provoked me into one this morning. Let's just have a look at this 22 billion question. There is total government spending, 1.2 trillion or thereabouts, 22 billion. I mean, seriously. The so-called 22 billion black hole, it's not the worst, it's not the biggest thing in the world that you have to face, is it?
I mean, that was the Conservative approach. It doesn't matter about the scale of the whole, let's just carry on splurging, carry on spending.
No,
that was tested to destruction with Liz Truss and the
That's
mini
not
budget.
what I said. In a 1.2 trillion
it's
spending
a significant
bill,
amount of money. What I couldn't do with
making
22 billion
pounds sound like if you don't fix it, then the economy's going to crash. I mean, let's just get practical.
Oh, we'll just go on spending more than we've got.
Nobody's saying that.
We'll just carry on ratcheting up the debt, running with a deficit. Who cares, right? That was basically where the last Conservative government got to. And had they been re-elected, they would have done it all over again, because as we exposed during the course of the election campaign, their manifesto was built on a whole range of unfunded spending commitments and tax cuts. That's reckless. It's the Conservative way. It's not the Labour way. And that's why we're taking tough decisions to fix and stabilise the public finances so we can fix the foundations and build a better home.
I'd like to spend some of this interview at least talking about your decisions rather than the Conservative past. And on this question of the winter fuel allowance, which is your choice, it is not... There are many things you could do, and you've chosen to do this one. One thing that puzzles me is why you're so defensive about it. The Chancellor's basically apologised, the Prime Minister said how sorry he is. But as the Chancellor had also pointed out, it affects people who are about to get a £400 increase in their pensions anyway. Having had pension increases ahead of the rise in earnings for a decade, surely that's what Labour should be about. You're taking a little money away from relatively affluent pensioners and handing it over, for example, in pay increases to health workers. Why are you so defensive about this?
Because we didn't come into government determined to take away people's winter fuel allowances. That's not the primary motivation here. The motivation is to balance the books. We have had to take into account context, and by the way, it's not just pensioners. We've got the budget and the spending review coming up. There are difficult choices coming.
I think the winter fuel payment was set up when the average pensioner was something like 30% less well off than the average worker in terms of income. And now that gap has closed so much to less than 10%. A quarter of pensioners live in millionaire households right now. A quarter. That's who the winter fuel payment is going to. If you've got a villa in Sicily and you're spending winter there, you get a winter fuel payment. It's obviously absurd.
Not many people.
But the principle, right? Why should you get this if you're a millionaire? You shouldn't. And if Labour can't really justify, they're struggling to justify it, and I can't work it out. I think this is so overdue, abolition, this thing. Of course, welfare should go to those who need it, not to those who don't. If Labour can't make this point, how are they going to make the point about welfare reform? That's going to be a far harder argument they've got coming down the road. This should be an easy one.
And to back up the claim that they're not explaining themselves very well, I think Keir Starmer didn't help himself much when he was asked a very valid question. Yes, it came from the Conservatives, but it wasn't a zinger. It wasn't trying to catch him out. And I think he could have done a lot more to reassure people that are rightly worried. But you can see that question in the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.